Hey guys, it's Thomas with Cheat Code Fantasy Sports, and I wanted to talk to you guys today about Major League Baseball, GPPs, lineup construction, things like that. The season will be here in a few weeks. I cannot wait. We only get 60 games this year, but it's better than nothing. Baseball has always been my favorite DFS sport. I've been playing season-long fantasy baseball for a lot longer than I want to admit, because it dates me. But I've been playing DFS, all sports really, but baseball especially, since DFS was invented. For the most part, I've been playing for years. So I want to kind of make a series of videos just addressing a number of topics when it comes to GPP lineup construction, things like that. I'm not a cash game player in any sport really. I play a little bit of cash in NBA. That's about it though. I'm not a cash game player. I'm a GPP player. I always say you have to play to your strengths, and my strength is just not cash games. I mean, that's my weakness. So I figure there's no point in me wasting money playing those type of games. I don't think on that level of the safe lineup that you need to win in cash games consistently. If you do, that's great. I mean, right? That's just another way you can make some money. Now, when it comes to like bankroll management, obviously that's going to be dictated by the kind of player you are. So that's something to keep in mind. I know, like I said, I've been playing DFS for years. For the first 4 or 5 years, bankroll management wasn't a real thing to me. I just threw money at contests on a nightly basis, hoped to have a few big wins throughout the year, cash out whatever I could. There were times my account would get down to zero. I would just redeposit, not think twice about it. And once I kind of realized the type of player I was, I kind of put together a bankroll management style for the type of player I specifically am. It kind of changed everything for me money-wise as far as profit goes. And that's a whole nother strategy you need to think about. I know you see on the internet it's been for years, right, from the beginning. Oh, you play 10% of your bankroll, and 5 or 10% of that 10% goes into GPPs. The rest goes into cash. No, it doesn't. If that suits you and that works perfectly for your type of game, because you're just that strong of a cash game player, that does sound great. But for me, that bankroll management style made zero sense. So I had to kind of look at myself individually and see what was going to work best for me. So once I was able to figure that out, again, and change my game, you can DM me in the Slack chat at any time. I'll gladly talk to you about the type of player you are and kind of where I would go as far as bankroll management to just make sure you're maximizing your profit as much as you possibly can. That's the most important thing to me. Maximizing your wins, minimizing your losses, and that sets you up it gives you a great advantage over if you weren't paying attention to your bankroll management and just kind of loosely playing. And, I see it online all the time where guys are like, oh, I'm going heavy tonight because I really like this guy or I really like this team and I'm going heavy tonight. I feel good about this one. I don't believe in that. I think every slate's the same. I don't believe that you should fluctuate your bankroll based on just because you feel good about a slate, because a lot of times those are the slates where you get crushed, and the ones where you don't expect it are generally when you end up taking down tournaments. So I don't know. I don't believe in just adjusting your bankroll based on how you feel about it. And with that being said too, just a little bit off topic, it's also one of those things where you don't have to play every night, right? You're free to do whatever you want. Who's going to tell you have to play if you don't want to one night? But sometimes I do see people say, oh, I don't like the pricing, or this slate's just too tough, I'm not playing it. Keep in mind on those kind of nights, it's tough for everyone. Like you're not getting different pricing than everyone else, the other 40,000 people in your tournament. You're all getting the same pricing. So I don't know. If you want to play, I wouldn't skip a slate because you don't feel good about the pricing or the matchups just look too tough. They're tough for everyone. And I'm going to kind of show you how I look at that to get a feel for what other people are doing on a daily basis, and then kind of how I adjust what I'm doing. Now, for me personally, I play a high risk strategy in baseball. I just believe that if I'm going to be a GPP player, the point is to take first. I don't care how often I min cash. That does nothing for me. I mean, a bunch of min cashes generally means that you lost money at the end of the year overall, right? Because no one's winning consistently enough to just min cash and do it enough that they're going to win. If that's what you're shooting for as a min cash, play double ups. It's a heck of a lot easier, and you're probably going to have more success. So for me, I'm a GPP player. I want to take first place, so I'm going to get risky with my lineups. And then that also means that there's going to be plenty of losing nights, but the winning nights should more than make up for the losing. So if you do like to play a safer strategy, and that's what we'll focus on today in GPPs, I would recommend getting different. I mean, again, it's your money. You can play however you want to play. If you like to play those safer teams, you want to play the more popular stacks or the more popular pitchers, I feel like go for it. But unless you're doing it kind of in a different way, or a way that's a little bit outside of what everyone else is doing, you're just at a huge disadvantage. I mean, more times than not, you're going to lose money. And the times where you do win, it's like, okay, great, you played the two pitchers that were in the best spot, and you stacked the team that was in the best spot, and you ended up cashing, but you're fighting with 20 or 30% of the tournament for those 24 or 27% of cashing spots. You're probably not going to even have a chance to finish first, right? If that's your strategy, just to use who has the best matchups, who's the most popular. That's who everyone's using. So we'll go to Fantasy Cruncher. This is where I build my lineups. I know a lot of people like to hand build. That's fine too. I mean, you can do it either way. This stuff I'm going to show you here kind of applies either way. And then we'll just pick a date. Last year, the 19th, okay. July 19th, there were 15 games, so we have a full slate to work with here. We can look at just kind of what happened on this day. Now, I don't remember a year ago off the top of my head, so I'm not going to be able to look and say, oh, these guys were running hot, these guys were running cold, or anything like that. So, okay, good. So we still got my projected ownership, and then my projections are still loaded in here from last year. That's what I love about Fantasy Cruncher is once you upload your data, it's in there. So here I am a year later looking back on something, my data's still in there. Yeah, I have their projections, I have their ownership, whatever, but I like to use my own for the simple fact, and this is actually the first year I'll be sharing it with anyone, because this stuff's my own, I know it's going to be unique. So that's going to kind of set my lineups apart right from the beginning. This stuff isn't out there for 10,000, 20,000 people to use and upload to their optimizers, and their lineups aren't going to be like my lineups are. Some night that's going to be a horrible thing. Some nights that's going to be a spectacular thing. And when it's spectacular, those are the nights that count, right? Those are the nights where we'll make our money. But again, this stuff will all be available in Slack this year for everyone, every day once baseball season starts. And the nice part is these aren't numbers that everyone out there is using. So it's gonna kind of help you get unique. So the first thing I do, let's take a look at our pitchers here. All right, all the relief pitchers are not in our pool. Let's get out of there. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of take a look at every day at who are the top pitchers, right? Who's going to be, and not just top pitchers as far as matchup, who's going to be owned, right? Who do our ownership projections say these are going to be the top guys owned? Because once we figure that out, we can kind of start figuring out how are other people going to build their lineups. Once we see what the common style of lineup build is going to be for a particular slate, that's where you get that chance to start being different, right? And like I said a few minutes ago, when people say, oh, I hate this slate, the matchups are no good, or the pricing's so bad, that's fine. It's bad for everyone. So as long as we can see how the majority of people are going to play it, that gives us an opportunity to find a pretty easy way to be different, and at the same time do it in a smart way where we're not just throwing money away, right? You don't want to just play, oh, I'm going to play all the guys that are 1% owned and I'm different. Hey, you're different, but you're also probably a moron that day because you're going to lose your money. So you got to be different, but you have to be smart about it. And again, because we're talking more about like that safer strategy, this is definitely helpful on how to pick a safe pitcher or a safe stack and get different with it. So looking on July 19th, we're sorted by projected own. I had Verlander as the highest, DeGrom, Tyler. I don't know if it's Molly or Maley, right? I'm just going to call him Molly. I'm not apologetic about it. I don't know how to pronounce his name, and at the end of the day, I don't care. And then Brendan McKay, Bieber was up there. Let me start getting down there, lower than 15%. So starting at the top, looking at Verlander, 11,400, right? So you already know on a day where there's an expensive pitcher that's going to be the highest owned or projected to be the highest owned, right? That's the thing about ownership projections. They're not exact. If they were exact, I wouldn't share them. No one would share them, right? We would be the guys making all the money. But they're going to give you an idea anyways of who the chalk is going to be, who's going to be lesser owned. But they're never going to be exact. And that's fine. They don't need to be, just as long as you get that random idea in your mind. I shouldn't say random because it's more than random when we're putting it together based on the numbers. But anyways, Verlander I had as the highest projected. Now, just by looking at this, I mean, and again, it's a little bit subjective where you have to take a look. So Verlander, I have projected highest owned. DeGrom was next, and then we have our boy from Cincinnati. Well, DeGrom's $800 less than Verlander was that day. Chances are they're probably not stacking an $11,000 pitcher and then a guy that's almost $11,000, right? That's why we have our Cincinnati guy so high, because he was $6,000. He probably had a decent matchup going against the Cardinals. I mean, I don't know if that was a decent matchup or not, to tell you the truth. Again, I can't remember what happened last year, but we had him projected really high. Fantasy Cruncher did too. Yeah, so it looks like we were pretty right on there as far as where he was projected ownership-wise. So we have to look at Verlander and think that he was probably going to be paired with the Cincinnati pitcher the most, right? Because he was so cheap, he's going to allow you to kind of get those bats that you want. Regardless of who you want, you're going to be able to fit them in. So let's go in and we're just going to set up some stacks. Now, I know there's different ways to stacks. There's 5-3s, 5-2-1, 4-4, 4-3. Maybe at some point I'll make another video on that. I mean, I feel that there are advantages to stacking certain ways on DraftKings. 5-3 isn't necessarily it, but it's a good way to find out kind of who are people going to be using, right? So I like to search for 5-3 stacks, again, when I'm just trying to figure out where do I think the field's going to be. So we'll just make 5 lineups real quick. Now, normally, right, if you're building lineups for yourself, you're going to build them based on your projections. Even if you're hand building, you're probably looking at some sort of projection, or even if it's just a feeling, right? And that's how you put your lineups together, based on feeling. Hey, I think this team's going to do well. How do I fit their hitters? And you're still building them that way. But when I'm looking to see how is the field going to look today, I go by my projected own, right? That's how I'm going to build these lineups. I want to see who do I have projected the highest with, as far as hitters go, right? How are those stacks going to work out? To just kind of give me an idea. And it's never going to be exact, but it's going to give us a good idea, at least of a few teams that fit well with Verlander and our Cincinnati pitcher that probably had decent matchups that day. And, real quick, not to get too far off subject, when it does come to baseball and matchups, always keep in mind, baseball is the most random sport out there. I think it's why it's the most frustrating for a lot of people, but I think it's why it's my favorite, because I don't get frustrated by that randomness. Once you accept the randomness and you kind of learn how to use it to your advantage, I just think it gives you such a huge opportunity to win money that people miss out on because they can't accept the randomness of baseball. They're going to use a guy like a Verlander, say he's got the best matchup of the day, right? You use him and he just happens to get blown up that day. People get so thrown off their game. They start changing their whole process, and it can kind of send you into a tailspin where you're just going straight down, right? And you're losing day after day after day. You get more frustrated. And again, you continually make these bad changes to your process because of that. And it just leads to long losing streaks. So I don't know, when you can accept that randomness is going to happen in baseball, things aren't going to go as expected most of the time. You find ways to take advantage of that, and we'll get into that in future videos. One more thing while I'm thinking about it, because I did mention the process. Another thing that I think is just a horrible, horrible habit that is all over the internet, all over different chat or DFS chats, whether it be Discords or Slacks or whatever, is a lot of people will use the excuse, trust the process, right? When things aren't going bad. Oh, I've got to just keep trusting the process. If I trust the process, I'll be fine, even though I got crushed today. That's very true, but at times it's extremely false. So just kind of keep that in mind and pay attention, because if you have a good process, yes, you're right, trust the process and just keep moving and you're going to be fine. If your process is garbage, why would you trust that, right? I mean, just saying, oh, this is my process and I'm just going to trust it even though I'm getting crushed, that doesn't make any sense. What proof do you have that your process is any good? So, and I'm not saying like no one has a good process. Obviously people do. And the thing is though, what proof do you have that it's good? Figure that out and make sure that you're not trusting a process that's just garbage, that's not going to get you anywhere. If you've back tested it, if you've had success in the past with it, okay, yeah, you're doing fine. But if it's just one of those things where it's like, hey, I've been playing DFS for a few years, I never profit, I never cash out at the end of a baseball season or any season. But, you know, people can tell me, trust the process. Nah, dude, don't trust that process. Get a new process. Let's talk about your process. Fix it. Let's learn how to back test things and see why it's not working. See if maybe it's a little change. See if you need to scrap everything. So, again, not to get too far off topic here, what we're doing. Just keep that in mind and kind of do a self-audit of the type of player you are, your process, and what's worked for you, what hasn't worked, and where you think you can get better. And you just constantly keep auditing that process and make sure it's solid. Don't trust a bad process. So back to the task at hand here. We are going to find out on July 19th of 2019 what did we think were going to be some popular lineup builds. So we're going to optimize these by projected own. We'll build 5 quick lineups with Verlander and our Cincinnati pitcher, who we think was going to be high owned because he fits in so well with Verlander. By doing that, we'll look at our team stacks. So it looks like, all right, so Cincinnati, Toronto, New York, Boston. So that's most likely who was going to fit in with these teams. So from here, again, everyone's going to be different. From here, though, like me personally, I'm not using Cincinnati today. I'm not using Toronto today. I'm not using New York. I'm not using Boston. I don't want to be lumped in with all of these people using those teams. So if I love Verlander and I love this pitcher from Cincinnati, I'm not stacking any of these 4 teams today, because these are the teams that I know they fit the best price-wise. Their matchups were probably good on paper, and this is how a lot of people in this tournament were going to go. Let's load some contest data, because for all I know, right, we just built a bunch of winners here, and I'm telling you that you want to go against these. Again, I would go against them regardless, but okay, so out of the 5 lineups we built, 2 would have cashed. We would have lost a total of $4. So, and I would expect that, right? Sorting by projected own. I'm working on a GPP here, trying to find who's going to be the most owned. We know that that's not generally going to win in any contest, just using the most owned players on the slate. So, again, for me personally, I kind of have a different process for how I pick my hitters. And then I more or less, I don't want to say how I pick my bats dictates how I pick my pitching, but it plays a huge role, right? Because if these are the popular stacks today, this is the popular hitter or pitching combination, just by me not using these bats, these teams, my pitching's already going to end up different most likely, right? Because I'm going to be able to fit things in that these lineups couldn't do. So if you are, say today you want to play the Reds or the Blue Jays or the Yankees or the Red Sox, then the first thing I'm looking at is, all right, I need to change up my pitching, right? If everyone's using Verlander, everyone's going to use the Cincinnati pitcher. They make these stacks work. I need to change there. Or if I'm going to use a 5-3 stack or a 4-4 stack, right? I like Cincinnati. I'm not using Toronto. I'm not using New York. I'm not using Boston as my secondary stack. I'm going to find a different team because I need to be different. Because I know I can see here, right? Cincinnati fits in so well with the Yankees and it gives me the pitchers I want. A lot of people are probably going to be on a Cincinnati Yankee stack. So if you like one of those teams, you like the Yankees, you like the Reds, get different with your second stack if you love these pitchers, right? You have to get different somewhere. Otherwise, you're fighting with a bunch of people for cashing spots. I just believe in fighting with the least amount of people to get those cashing lineups. Another thing you can do, again, I wouldn't necessarily go this way, but on a slate like this, what are some uncommon pitching combinations that you think the pitchers both have some potential upside, and it's going to force you, right, to get out of these common stacks of Cincinnati, Toronto, New York, Boston, because they're not going to fit anymore. So on a day like today, right, we had DeGrom as the second highest owned. Maybe people were deciding, hey, I can't fit in all the bats I want, so I'm going to use DeGrom instead of Verlander. Maybe consider using Verlander and DeGrom. Now, all of a sudden, right, we're spending $22,000 on pitching, and that's outrageous, but it's also not going to be something common. Now, I'm not saying you should run this in every tournament. Let's just go with our projections, and we'll just see running these guys how we would have done. All right, so yeah, I mean, just by running Verlander and DeGrom 5 times, using my projections, I ended up cashing 5 lineups. So it would have been $20 in this contest for a $90 profit. So just by being different, we automatically got different bats. As far as our stacks go, we still have some Cincinnati, Toronto, and Boston. New York didn't make it in. Their price probably didn't fit. Let's see who our highest scoring team was. All right, so our highest scoring team, though, was a Cincinnati stack, again, which was a popular one, but with Baltimore. Yeah, we had a 23, a 7, and a 10. So Baltimore did decent. So they were in this Blue Jay stack with the pitching. Going somewhere that a lot of people wouldn't have been going to, it automatically gave us some different teams, right? So that's one way to get different. Another way to get different is, again, the Cincinnati pitcher. If we think he's going to be so popular because he fits in with Verlander, and Verlander and our guy Molly here are going to be the most popular pitching combination on the slate, I'm immediately looking at those guys. Can I make an argument to stack against either one of them? I don't want to throw away money. So in this case, Verlander against Texas, maybe Texas can get to him, but I wouldn't love that. I don't know. That's maybe not a guy I want to pick on. I know Verlander's going to have his down games throughout the year, and you could take advantage of it, but you're going to end up losing some money chasing that 1 or 2 bad starts where he's going to be the worst pitcher on the slate. Looking at our guy from Cincinnati's pitching logs. All right, so in 2019, it looks like, I mean, he's had a few games where he scored over 20 points, 25 points, 22 points, but he's had a lot of games here where, right, single digits, 2.65, 4.95, 6.45, minus 5.45. So this guy's going to be extremely popular. Let's just see if he pitched against St. Louis before that last year. Okay, so yeah, his first start against St. Louis, it was about 3 months prior. He went 5 innings, gave up 6 hits, 5 earned runs, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. Maybe we consider stacking against him, right? We want to get different. Everyone we know is going to be on him because he makes Verlander work and he gets you your Yankees and your Blue Jays stacks. Maybe we take a shot with St. Louis as our main stack. Run 5 lineups here. We'll use my projections. And in this case, all right, so out of 5 lineups, we cashed once. In this 4-seamer contest that day, that would have been a loss of $10. But again, that's just something to look at. I mean, is that does it make sense to go against him? I mean, he scored a 9.2. He gave up some runs that day. Let's use him again with Verlander and DeGrom, right? Our guys that no one's going to use together. And we're going to stack against who the most popular secondary pitcher is on the slate. And I mean, this is probably going to obviously work out. Yeah, I mean, we cheated here. Obviously, we know the results. So as I'm building these lineups, but is it a stretch to say, looking back on July 19th, that Verlander and DeGrom are going to be popular pitchers, but they're not going to be used together? So you decide to use them together and stack against that Cincinnati pitcher? It's very possible, right? Those are the kind of lineups I'm actually looking for on a day-by-day basis. And on this day, 5 lineups, I mean, these numbers should be pretty true here. I mean, you would have won about $1,100 in the 4-seamer just on 5 lineups. When it comes to, let's see if we can find a single entry. Yeah, the $12 single entry. We'll just see what our top lineup would have done there. 166.25. So for $12, you would have won $200 that day. I mean, not anything to write home about, but obviously I'll take winning $200 over losing 12 any day of the week. But again, it was just by a simple process of how can I get different. The nice part about this is if you're using good projections, and in baseball, I mean, I don't like to rely on the projections so much as far as points, but I am. Ownership projections mean everything to me, right? That's how I build my lineups. It's maybe a little bit unorthodox to some people. I'm looking at ownership. How can I get different from that standpoint? I don't need to know what this guy's ISO is on a night game in Cincinnati against a left-handed pitcher. I don't need to know that stuff outside of what my projections are telling me, right? Because those kind of things are going to be baked in there, right? All the stuff that gets pulled into my Excel sheet personally, it's taken into account how this guy does against left-handers, the park factors, how the pitcher pitches to right-handers, things like that. So all that stuff's going to be in the projections. There's no point in me spending 4 hours out of my day researching that same stuff all over again when it's kind of already calculated in for me. I love baseball. I love researching certain things about baseball. I don't want to spend 4 hours a day studying things that aren't actually helping me because, again, how many times is the best matchup on paper going to be the one that wins all the money in a certain day? It's rare, right? It's almost never. It's generally going to be where the best matchup doesn't work out, and that's where, you see it all over Twitter and everywhere else. Oh, if this guy would have done what he was supposed to do, I would have won all the money. Nah, dude, he did what he was supposed to do. You just didn't understand how to look for what he was supposed to do or how you were supposed to play it. These games aren't played on paper, so you definitely can get a huge advantage. Again, this is for if you're just more of a safe player, just figure out how is the average person going to play a slate. And what are 1 or 2 little things you can do to get different? And once you figure out those 1 or 2 little things, it's going to give you an advantage. Is it going to make you win every single day? I mean, we kind of got lucky here pulling this day. And if you guys ever want to see me you choose the day, I'll go back to it and we can look at that. Like, I don't, everything worked out perfect on this day. And I just don't want to give off the impression that, oh, this is going to be all 60 days of your baseball season are going to be just like this if you follow us at Cheat Code. No, it's not. We got lucky and everything worked out. But again, you're not going to win every day in baseball. No one wins every day in any DFS sport. It just doesn't happen. If they tell you that they do, they're lying to you. But you have to get different. So if you don't have that risk tolerance to say, hey, if I finish last, I'm okay with it, knowing that I made smart decisions and I was building a lineup with the upside potential to finish first, right? But you don't have that risk tolerance to say I can live with losing 23 out of 30 days, knowing that the 7 days out of the month where I win are going to make me extremely profitable, right? Because those were like takedown days or days where I almost took down tournaments. A lot of people just don't want to lose those 23 days out of the month, and that's fine. So if you are a safer player, though, you still have to get different if you want to chance it first. If you don't want to chance it first, like I said earlier, I would recommend cash games. I feel like GPPs are difficult enough to cash in. You can't do it consistently enough. Why waste your money? If you're just doing it for fun, go ahead. I mean, again, your money, you do whatever you want to do. I just don't understand that way of thinking. I don't have fun, like losing my money. So I don't know. It seems like a slow burn when you play a lot of popular plays just because they have the great matchups on paper. So that's just one way you can get a little different. Again, you can reach out to me in the Slack chat. My name is Thomas. You can DM me. Let me know what other things you guys would like to see, if anything else. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be how I build lineups on Fantasy Cruncher. We can look at different ways to kind of research things, different ways to build lineups, different strategies like that as far as GPPs go. I've been playing the game long enough. I think I've seen every strategy, tried every strategy, and back tested all of them to know what works for me and see what doesn't work. That's just as important, finding the things that don't work and knowing how to avoid them. But yeah, definitely reach out to me. Let me know if there's anything else you guys want to see, any particular subjects or any questions you have. I'll be glad to answer them.